process off their shores. They now are a strong economy in Russia. Why? Because they don't export petrodollars anymore. They use the money in their own country to finance development in their own country. Now, we have to make up our minds whether we're going to face blind opposition, incorrect and uninformed opposition, or whether we're going to take the actions needed to develop American oil to meet American demand. Whether we're going to use the deep water off our shores to produce oil like the rest of the world does. Norway produces oil off their shores. Britain produces oil off their shores. As a matter of fact, we produce oil off our southern shore, but we're prevented from producing oil off our northern shore. It's absolutely inconsistent and irrational what we're facing. Our pipeline at its peak was transported 2.1 million barrels of oil a day to the west coast of the United States. Today, it's producing about 700,000 barrels a day. It's two-thirds empty, in effect. It wouldn't need a new pipeline to carry the oil that would be produced at ANWR. It's there. It could carry more than 1 million barrels a day easily. And yet, but it's been opposed now. It's been opposed for over 20 years by the same irrational people that come to the floor and say, oh, Saudi Arabia, produce more oil, produce 800,000 barrels a day, and we can probably expect gasoline price at the pump will come down 62 cents. But if you bring 1 million barrels of oil down from Alaska, it's only going to affect by a penny. Now, I've got to tell you that we have to have smarter energy solutions. I hope the time will come when we can have a rational debate here on this floor. And I'm reminded of that rational debate when we finally approved the legislation that brought about the construction of the Alaska oil pipeline in the 70s. We waited 4 years for that pipeline to start because of stubborn opposition from the extreme environmentalists. It was finally overcome, that opposition was overcome by an act that started right here on the floor of the Senate, which closed the courts of the United States any further litigation over building that pipeline. We're just following the oil embargo. America realized that we had to have more American oil. And there was no filibuster on this floor. The vote was 49-49, and that tie was broken by the then Vice President. Now, what's happened, Madam President? Why should every time we bring up ANWR we have a filibuster? Why can't we bring to the American continent the resources of this continent that happen to be in our state? Now,
would the senator yield for a question?
I'll be happy to yield to my friend.
All right. I don't want to disrupt your line of thinking here because I agree so much with. But, you know, every time I hear people talking about ANWR, hear people talking about stopping any drilling or exploration on ANWR, it occurs to me, here you are, the senior senator from Alaska. You've been here for a long time. I've gone with you up to the area that they're talking about in drilling. I've heard people compare that like to a postage stamp to a football field or something like that. It's a tiny area up there. But the question I'd have is twofold. First of all, why is it that as near as I can determine, people who live there all want to explore and resolve this problem that we have in this country by drilling and exploring in ANWR? I mean, who are we down here to tell you up in Alaska what's best for you? That would be the number one question. Then the second thing is, what I've observed, I say to the senior senator who's been here longer than I have, every time this has come up, I came from the House to the Senate back in 1995. On October 27th, 1995, we voted by 52 to 47, right down party lines, to go ahead and to start exploring ANWR. All the Republicans supported it. All the Democrats opposed it. Then again, November 17th, 1995, the same thing happened. We voted to explore. The Democrats voted against it. Then, after all that work was done, the president, then President Clinton, in December 6th of 1995, vetoed the bills that had this authority that we'd given them to drill. And then the same thing, I can go on and on, but in 2005, the same thing happened. The Senate voted on an amendment to the budget resolution to strike the expansion of exploration in ANWR. It failed by 49 to 51, right down party lines. You know, I guess the second question I'd ask you is, why is making us self-sufficient a partisan issue? Why do the Democrats oppose it and the Republicans support it?
So I've got to tell the Senator that's comparatively new in terms of my term in the Senate.